Hi folks, today I'm going to be reassembling my Illinois Bunn Special. So it's all cleaned and I've inspected the movement, so I'm ready to start assembly. I've got on my bench some clean finger cots, the movement of course, a new mainspring, and a clean movement holder. So yeah, stay tuned. It's always a good idea to make sure your implements are clean, so I push my tweezer tips into pithwood. Okay, and I'm going to begin by inserting the mainspring into the barrel. So this is a new mainspring in a washer. It's a right-handed mainspring, so looking at the barrel from the bottom, it's going to be turning counterclockwise. You can also tell which way to insert it because the colored side is up. Here it's colored red. The challenge with these pocket watch mainsprings is getting the T end of the mainspring. They have a special end which has to fit in a slot in the barrel. And lining these up can be difficult, and if I don't get it on the first try, I may have to wind the mainspring out and then try again. Okay, the mainspring is now in the barrel. I can remove the washer. Now what I want to do is check that the T is in the hole. Not quite. Not quite. Yes, there we go. Okay, so on the third attempt, I did manage to get the slot into the T end into the hole. This is really kind of challenging and annoying. So I put it in the ring, wasn't in, took it out, put it in using these Watchcraft mainspring, pocket watch mainspring winders, which are great. Didn't get it in, tried it a third time, got it very, very close, and just pushed it in. So this is kind of a challenging part about working on old pocket watches. It's in now, so I can rest easy. The rest is a cakewalk compared to those TN mainsprings. So next up is inserting the barrel arbor and also lubricating the arbor. Now I'm inserting the barrel arbor. So for that purpose, I'm putting the barrel on top of a barrel closing tool. Make sure the spring itself is situated properly. Then I'm inserting the arbor screw side down. I find it easiest to insert the arbor first and then oil. Okay. There we go. Arbor's in. Turn it back to hook on. There we go. Now we can close the barrel. So again, this requires lining up the T end on the top side. There we go. T end in the slot. Then we can pop the barrel lid on. There we go. I can hear it pop on. Then I just need to oil the arbor in the barrel. For this, I use Mobius D5. Make sure your oilers are clean. Push them into pithwood. Yes, that's good. Take a small amount of oil. It's always better to go back for more oil than overdo it. Get oil in places you don't want it. Okay, I'm now going to install the parts of the keyless works on the movement side, not the dial side. There's my loop. And I'm going to begin by by lubricating the spots where the stem is going to bear against the movement plate. So again, coming in with clean oiler. So I use Molykote DX, where there's going to be this intense kind of friction between the moving part and the plate. Not too much, but just a bit. So now here I've got the, I suppose you'd call it the stem. I've got the winding pinion and I've got the sliding clutch. So what I need to do is lubricate the stem where it's going to meet the sliding pinion, and on the square where it's going to hold the sliding clutch. For this I'm going to use Mobius D5. And again, obviously there's many types of lubricants, and you hear many different things about what people use. So you have to make up your own mind. I took Mark Lovick's course, and so I follow the broad outlines of what he recommends there. But you can modify oiling practices as you see fit. You don't have to use the same lubricants. For example, in his course, he recommended D5. People are now switching away from D5 to synthetic lubricants like HP 1300. So, you know, if you wanted to do that, you could switch over. And I think when this pot of D5 expires, I am actually going to switch over. Likewise, some people use DX paste on Keyless Works, and there are synthetic alternatives to that now too, I believe. Okay, so I've now lubricated the stem where it's going to bear against the winding pinion and the sliding clutch. I'm just going to now lubricate the teeth of, my goodness, I'm now going to lubricate the teeth of the winding pinion and sliding clutch with Mobius D5. There we go, on the square. And then I can fit the whole assembly into the main plate there. Very nice, good. Just rotate it, spread that grease around a little bit. Okay, I'm now placed my barrel in. Then I'm going to place the center wheel over that. This hole. There we go. And now I'm going to place the barrel bridge. You'll notice that actually the third wheel sits slightly under the barrel. However, there's quite a big gap, so it'll be easy to slide in. There we go. Locate the pivots, the arbors in their holes. Push down very lightly. You can use your gloved finger. You could also just use pegwood, brass tweezers. So that's securely in position. Now we're going to screw down the bridge. I did some screw polishing. I didn't record this. I just received a screw polishing device, a tool, which I will show at another time. I've been practicing on these screws, trying to black polish them. I got pretty good results. I think it needs a bit more work, but they certainly look very nice right now. So then I can go ahead and screw down this bridge. Especially once you've spent some time, spent an hour and a half doing all the screws, you really don't want to mess up the screws. So you want to make sure you choose an appropriate fitting screwdriver. Securely in the slot, but not touching the bottom of the slot. That's the key. Okay, so before I proceed any further, I've gone ahead and installed the train bridge with no train. And the reason for this is that it's time to do the train cap jewels. So in addition to to having your regular 17 jewels every arbor except the barrel arbor jeweled. This watch has cap jewels, flat end stones with conical pivots on the escape wheel as well as on the pallet fork pivots. So before I go installing the train, what I want to do is remove the cap jewels from the escape wheel on both the dial side and on the movement side, hand clean them, oil them, and put them back in position so that I can install the train. Okay, so I've loosened the screws, and what I'm going to do now is just push out the setting. I've just got a flat-faced hollow punch here, and I should be able to easily push out the setting without putting any pressure on the jewels. There we go. That's it. Come on. And there we go. So that's our escape wheel cap jewel, dirty old cap jewel, and hole jewel in their settings pushed out of the movement. So now I need to peg out the hole and clean the cap jewel, then oil and reassemble the setting. Okay, I'm now going to oil the cap jewel. I'm using Mobius 9020 on the watch train. Normally I use 9010, but I reserve 9020 for larger caliber watches, such as pocket watches. You could use 9010 if you were in a pinch and you didn't want to spend the money on 9020, but they say you should use it for larger watches, and so that's what I do. And again, I use the small oiler and go back multiple times if necessary. I'd rather do this than flood it. Now here comes the fun part. What we're going to have to do is flip the cap jewel over and place it down in its setting without spilling the oil everywhere. So this takes a little bit of practice. Woo! Wow, I didn't manage not to flip it on that one. There we go. So we just flip it over, put it in its setting. And then what we need to do is make sure that the screw indentations are lined up so that we won't damage the setting when we go to screw it in. Okay, so that's one side of the escape wheel done. So I'm not going to film this, but I'm going to go ahead now and do the movement side. Then I'll come back when I'm assembling the train. Okay, I'm now ready to begin installing my train of wheels. So I'm going to begin with the third and escape wheels because these sit on a lower plane than the fourth wheel, and then I'll snug the fourth wheel in there over top. So that's the third wheel. The escape wheel, conical pivot, so it doesn't quite want to sit upright as easily as it would if it had a square shoulder pivot. Then I'm just going to slide the fourth wheel into place. Long pivot goes through to the dial side. That gold train is just spectacular. Okay. There we go. Now I'm going to oil the train completely for the pivot holes that are not cap jeweled. So barrel arbor, center arbor, third wheel, fourth wheel. So I use D5 on barrel and center and third arbors, but on the fourth I'll use 9020. Center wheel. Okay, I'm now going to install the dial side keyless works. On the dial side, on the keyless works, I'm going to use a combination of, not literally a combination, but I'm going to alternately use Mobius D5 and Mollycott DX paste. I used to use pretty much all D5 except for the center arbor post underneath the cannon pinion. Um, and this is in accordance with Mark Lovick's videos and his online course. Over time, I become more concerned about how D5 spreads in the keyless works. I believe it's a mineral oil, so it tends to want to spread a lot, and consequently, you have to be very, very careful about the way in which you're applying it. I'm thinking about. I'm trying to move towards using more DX just because it's more a heavier grease and it's more resistant to spreading. So I'm going to be experimenting with that in places where I'm particularly concerned about the spread of oil. Okay, so I'm going to start with the cannon pinion, the minute wheel, and the minute wheel cover. I'm going to have to use pegwood to hold this down, I think. Okay, so I've finished reassembling the keyless works. Um, so I just want to do a review of the proper functioning. So here we have the lever for the lever setting. When you pull the lever, it pushes over the yoke, and that moves the sliding clutch into engagement with the minute wheel. Uh, if you then have your fingers on the stem, you can set the time. Of course, when you push the lever in, it's spring-loaded, so it wants to return. And likewise, the yoke is spring-loaded on the other side and is pushed back into engagement with the winding pinion. So, very clean, very pleasing, very pleasing mechanism there. Now what I'm going to do before I install the pallets in the watch is check the free running of the gear train. So in order to do that, I'm going to insert a bench key here and I'm just going to turn the ratchet wheel a few clicks. And what we should look for is that the escape wheel comes to a stop and then reverses direction. And indeed you can see that happening here. The reason why we want to see that is because remember that the barrel arbor is only connected to the to the barrel by the mainspring, and so the mainspring is getting stretched out when you turn the ratchet wheel, and then the barrel is catching up to the barrel arbor. So then it typically overshoots and bounces back, and that will be reflected in the reversing of the escape wheel. So that's usually considered a good sign that the train is free of impediments and will provide good power to the oscillator. We can also just take a look, a little follow-up on the fourth wheel that I trued in a previous video. So if I turn that, we can see that it's not quite perfect, but it's much, much better than it was. So I'm very satisfied with how this train is going. In fact, I'm a little bit scared that we might see some knocking of the bankings, but well, we'll have to see. Now to install the pallets. I'm now going to oil the escapement, that is the faces of the pallet stones. It's important to be very precise here and only get the oil on the faces of the stones. We just want oil where the pallet stones meet the escape wheel teeth. We don't want to get oil on top of the escape wheel or on the top or bottom of the pallet stones because we don't want it to wick away or run away from the the point of friction over time, which would just decrease your service interval. So to oil, I use this broken L-shaped pointed oiler. I broke it once by accident, and I kept it around and sharpened it to a very fine point. So this allows me to get in kind of inaccessible spaces to oil. I typically oil from the top, and I typically oil the exit stone impulse phase. So I do it once, then I advance 3 or 4 teeth, do it again, advance again, and do it one more time. So after doing it 3 or 4 times, then I'll let the watch run in, and then I'll go in later for a closer inspection of the amount of oil on the escapement. If there's too little, I'll add more. If I have got oil, for example, somewhere I'm not supposed to, like on the pallet fork, I may have to take that out and re-clean it. So I'm going to proceed with that now. I use 9415, Mobius 9415, a grease for all escapements. I know some people recommend using an oil, Mobius 941, for slow escapements. Like they only reserve the grease for high beat escapements. I use the grease for everything. I've never heard a convincing reason why one should use an oil for escapements that are not high beat. As far as I'm concerned, you should just use grease on everything. Although I may be wrong about that. There may actually be a convincing reason. And if you know of one, please tell me in the comments. I would really appreciate it. But I've always had good results with Mobius 9415. Advance the escape wheel. We'll do it one more time. So now I've got to clean the balance cap jewel and oil it, and then the balance is going to go back in the watch. Then I'm going to dangle the balance delicately, getting it on the right side of the fork. That is the correct side of the fork. Good. Let me set the cock down. Whoopsie-daisy, very gently. It's not quite in the hole. There we go. Spinning freely. Screw the cock down and give the watch a good old wind. But it's running. It's running. So I'm bringing you guys in for a closer look. Our old Broken Bunn Special is running. Such a nice feeling, such a rewarding feeling. It's making a great sound, so I'm going to shut up so you guys can hear it. Beautiful. Train-like, locomotive-like. I love it. And the gold train, oh, to die for. Okay, and it appears to be making very good amplitude. It appears to be making about 270. You can tell because you can see the regulator arm is stopping right above the line of centers, that is right above the pallet jewel. So if it's in beat, that indicates it's making 270 degrees. So that's fantastic. Okay, so that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you so much for your patience. I am going to demagnetize the watch, then I'm going to allow it to run in for a few hours at least, maybe a day. Then check the escapement oiling. Make sure I don't have to do any more adjustments to the hairspring for flatness or concentricity. And then we can move on to timing the watch. And that's going to be a big task. I'm going to actually try to dynamic poise this watch. And you guys will, of course, be around for that. So thanks so much for watching. See you guys next time.